accustomed as I am. Bear with us. Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
The regular teacher's away, so the lunatics are running the asylum. So we'll start with our regular prayers. Page
Start.
page 7.
Ones will repeated. We'll start page 7 and go straight through the regular Sunday morning. Start with refuge and bodhicitta. In Buddha's Dharma and Sangha, until enlightened I seek refuge, through merit from giving and the rest, to aid all may I become Buddha. In the Buddha's Dharma and Sangha, until enlightened I seek refuge, through merit from giving and the rest, to aid all may I become Buddha. In the Buddha's Dharma and Sangha, through merit from giving and the rest, to aid all may I become Buddha. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings never be parted from sorrowful bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from bias, attachment, and hatred. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the full destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of God, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, subduer of the Shakti clan, I prostrate and offerings and look for refuge. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the full destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer of the Shakti clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human, completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer of the Shakti clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When, O supreme among humans who were born on this earth, you paced out 7 strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise, then I prostrate. With pure bodies, forms supremely pure, wisdom motion like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, Lord, to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, face like spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. Dust free like you, the 3 worlds are not. Incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the founder having all understanding, God's lostness I prostrate. The purity that frees one from attachment, the virtue that frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime pure reality, to the dark that pacifies I prostrate. Those who are liberated and walk through the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are the workers of moral precepts, to you, sublime community taking tender virtue I prostrate. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the great Sangha, to all three ever devout homage, to all worthy of respect, bowing with bodies as many as all realms, atoms, and all aspects, with supreme faith I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform this is the teaching of the Buddha. To star, a mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through these merits, these sentient beings attain the rank of all seeing, subdue the foe of faults, and be delivered from samsara's illusion, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. From Tushita's hundreds of gods, protectors heart, to Tila with fresh, pure light, heaped her like a omniscient King, pray come to thee in space ahead on thine throne, lotus and moon, venerable Guru, smile brightly with delight, pray say hundreds of eons to spread doctrine as supreme merit, feel for my mind of faith, your wisdom mind sees full range of knowables, your eloquent speech adorns fortune lilies, your beauteous body, fame, glory, outstanding, homage to you, pleasant offerings of water, bears flowers, fragrant incense, light perfume, and so on. Oceans of offerings set out and envisioned, offered up to you, supreme field of merit, non-virtue committed with body, speech, and mind, which I have heaped of sin, speaking in less time, especially what has contradictory us. Each I confess from my heart, you strove to learn and practice, shun mundane concerns, made life essence-full, O protector from depths of our hearts. We rejoice in your powerful great deeds, venerable Gurus from love and wisdom, clouds densely lasting your Dharma Kaya sky, pray loose a rain of last profound Dharma on fields of disciples, just as that I here gathered, bring benefit to all beings and doctrine, and may it make venerable Samdrapas essential teaching, specially shall forever make say way generosity, dreaming and play one Buddha Beyond, Lupuma illusions in some way down, Ganjan Gele Sugyan Song Kapla So Ardent, O glorious and great assembly of Bodhisattvas and the great assembly of Buddhists. At that time, the Blessed One was absorbed in the concentration of the countless aspects thereof. The Bodhisattva, the great being, was looking perfectly at the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, perfectly looking at the emptiness of inherent existence of the five aggregates also. Then, through the power of the Buddha, the Venerable proved himself as the superior one of the Bodhisattva, the great being. How should a child of the lineage trained and wish to engage in the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom? Thus he spoke, and the superior Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, replied to the Venerable Shariputra as follows. Shariputra, whichever son or daughter of the lineage wishes to engage in the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom should look perfectly like this. Subsequently, looking perfectly and correctly at the emptiness of the inherent existence of the five aggregates also. Form is empty, emptiness is form. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are empty without characteristics. That is, they are not produced and do not cease. They have no defilement and no separation from defilement. They have no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visible form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no object of touch, no mental phenomenon. There is no mind element, and so forth, up to no mind element, up to no element of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and no cessation of ignorance, and so forth, up to no age or suffering, no origin, no cessation, and no path, no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Therefore, the Shariputra, because there is no attainment, Bodhisattvas rely on and divide the perfection of wisdom, and because their minds have no obstructions, they have no fear. Passing utterly beyond error, they attain the final state beyond sorrow. All the Buddhas who reside on the three times by relying upon the perfection of wisdom become manifest in complete Buddhas in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, equal to the unequal mantra, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, since it is not false, should be known as the truth. The mantra of the perfection of Buddha's soul, Lama. Shariputra, this is how a bodhisattva, a great being, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration and said to the superior Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, well said, O child of the lineage, so it is. The profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced exactly as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Shariputra, the superior Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, and the entire assembly, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, demigods, Bodhisattvas, and others, were filled with admiration and highly praised what had been spoken by the Blessed One. In the holy supreme abode of the Tahinis, possessed of clairvoyance and miraculous, homage to the hosts of the three places Tahinis. Through the power of truth, the exalted mutual speech, may all of the silent negativities such as the form are may become may they be pacified. All enemies, obstructors, and hindrances shunned the Guru so the 80,000 types of obstructors pacified, freedom from adverse conditions, may all be conducive and perfect auspiciousness, bring happiness and well-being here right now. Junim Sonamki, Rola Benji Sangi Durhasho, Sangi Chodan Shusmi Jonam La, Janchupa Dudan Nityam Sushi, Danvasho, Sangi Chodan Shoke Jonam La, Janchupa Dudan Nityam Sushi, Dani Junim Sonamki, Rola Benji Sangi Durhasho.
By doing a short meditation on the breath. So you probably know the main elements of the meditation posture, that you're sitting cross-legged on a cushion, a small cushion under your backside, or if you're sitting on a chair, try to keep your feet flat on the floor. And the main thing is to keep your back straight. Your spine straight, but your neck slightly bent forward, just a little. And your shoulders are level, not one higher than the other, parallel with the floor. Your arms are rounded, held slightly out from your sides, with your hands in your lap, palms upward, right on top of the left, with the tips of your thumbs touching. Your eyes are closed or very slightly open. Your lips are closed, your lower jaw is relaxed, and the tip of your tongue. And the way you cross your legs, you can do a full lotus, or Vajra posture, or half lotus, or just regular crossed legs, whatever works for you. Although meditation is something we do with our mind, it's since our mind and body are so closely connected, it's good to get used to a meditation posture that has been centuries by experienced meditators to be most conducive to successful meditation. Also, if you get used to this posture, and when you sit in it, your mind automatically knows that it's time to meditate. And once you settle actions away from objects of the five physical senses, and once inside, we also have to keep it away from internal distractions, mainly discursive thought. Mainly discursive thought, and also sluggishness or sleepiness. Again, find your breath, where it goes out, comes in through your nostrils. On that point. That point just at the entrance of your nostrils. That's where we focus our concentration on the breath as it goes out, comes in. So you don't have to do any special kind of breathing, you just breathe normally, naturally, in a very relaxed way. Light and happy that you're meditating. In order to help keep focus, just generate the thought, now I'm going to meditate on my breath, without allowing myself to become distracted by anything whatsoever. So, with that strong determination, try to, for a few minutes. As soon as you notice that your mind has gone off your breath, drop whatever it was that distracted you and just bring your mind straight back to your breath. If you've done this meditation effectively, your mind should be a little calmer and clearer than it was before. So now take this opportunity to look into your mind and check your motivation. And ask yourself why did I come to the center this morning? If you find the reason that you're here is something to do with worldly motivation, just out of concern for happiness or comfort, some other reason to do with this life alone, no thought of benefiting future lives, attaining liberation from cyclic existence or even enlightenment. And we should recognize that motivation as coming from attachment, which is a negative mind, a cause of suffering. Attachment to the happiness and comfort of just this life. It's called negative because it's a cause of suffering. What we want is happiness, but when we follow attachment, we're actually creating the cause of suffering. We're leaving an imprint, a negative karmic imprint on our consciousness. And the seed of future suffering will eventually ripen into some kind of suffering. So, checking our mind like this is like doing an X-ray to see if there's any spots, any cancer or anything, any disease in our lungs or somewhere else. So if we recognize negative mind, attachment, faulty motivation, we should recognize it as such and determine not to follow it but replace it with a positive motivation. So when we replace it with a positive motivation, it may feel, at the beginning, kind of just words, not very sincere, just something intellectualized. That's how a deeper, heartfelt motivation begins, through the words. And if we don't generate positive motivations verbally, then we'll never really get to the stage where it's automatic, where it's a spontaneous part of our being, which is what we want. So, there are lots of ways to cultivate a positive motivation. You can think, the purpose of my life, the reason I was born human. The purpose of my life is to lead all sentient beings from suffering. And in order to do that, first I have to reach enlightenment myself. And the way I do that is by studying and practicing the path to enlightenment. To do that, I need to think about, I need to hear the teachings of the Buddha. So that's why I'm here this morning, in order to study the teachings of the Buddha, in order to reach enlightenment. So ideally, when we come into the center, from when we start from home, when we get up, or have breakfast, whatever, when we're driving here, should also be thinking like that. I'm coming to the center in order to reach enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. And when we say that, we should try to remember the suffering with ourselves, the suffering of all sentient beings, and feel strong compassion and a strong wish to alleviate all that suffering. Of all the different positive qualities of mind that we can generate and develop. Compassion is arguably the most important. Compassion, the wish to alleviate the suffering of others. In order to feel compassion for others' suffering, we need to understand their suffering. And for that, we really need to understand our own suffering. So, that's why the very first teaching the Buddha gave after reaching enlightenment was the truth, what it is and where it comes from. So if we understand our own beginningless suffering in cyclic existence, how since beginningless time we've been born, reborn, dying, reborn, dying, in cyclic existence, experiencing one. We understand that all sentient beings in cyclic existence have been going through the same thing. Under the control, because of delusion and karma, the true cause of suffering. And through his experience, that this suffering can be completely overcome, because it has a cause, a cause that has an antidote. The suffering, the beginning of the suffering, can finish. So he taught the path to the cessation of suffering. So the way we study that path here is by studying the teachings on the stages of the path to enlightenment. In Tibetan we call it lam-rim. This formulation of the Buddha's teachings, this structuring of the Buddha's teachings into this stages of the path was by the great Indian scholar and yogi, Yeshe. And the most detailed and thorough explanation of that path was written by Lama, the founder of the Tibetan Buddhist tradition we follow here. So his major work on this stage of the path is called the lam-rim, or the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment. So the main aspects of that path are, from the beginning, how to find and maintain a relationship with an authentic spiritual teacher. To recognize and understand the freedom and richness of the human birth that we have. And perfect human rebirth give us every opportunity to practice the Dharma, teachings of the Buddha. Teachings on impermanence and death, and the fact that we're certain to die. We don't know when. It could happen any time. And the only thing that can help us not our possessions or our position, not our family and study and practice can help us at the time of death and our future lives. And that if we die before we've been able to practice much, we're almost certain to be born into the lower realms of psychic existence, the hell realm, the hungry ghost realm, the animal realm, from which it's very difficult to escape. Buddha's teachings and the community of practitioners which is the way out of this precarious position in which we find ourselves. And having taken refuge, the main practice should be to observe the law of karma, to stop creating negative actions, to create only positive actions, and to purify the negative actions we have created in this and previous lives. In that way, at least, we can create a better future life. In our next life, at least if we don't attain liberation from cyclic existence, at least we can get we can be reborn in the upper realms of psychic existence as a human or a god. Ideally, to receive another perfect human rebirth in which we can continue our practice of Dharma. That's the very least we should aim for. But, since rebirth, even a perfect human rebirth is still in cyclic existence, and there's no guarantee that if we do get a perfect human rebirth, another one in our next life, there's no guarantee that after that we won't fall again into the lower realms. We should actually liberation from the entire beginningless cyclic existence. And then the teachings, the next level of teachings on the steps of the path to enlightenment explain how to do that. So we study the Four Noble Truths, the 12 links of dependent origination, follow the 3 higher trainings of conduct, concentration and wisdom. We try to realize the ultimate nature of our own mind. Through that we can free ourselves from psychic existence. And we can put an end to our own beginningless personal suffering. But that's because we're only one and other sentient beings are infinite. So it's not right that we should just free ourselves and leave all the others in suffering, particularly as we have to depend on the kindness of others to free ourselves. So to use them just to free ourselves is completely wrong. We should free ourselves, but not just for ourselves to be free, but so that we can free others, all others, from their suffering. And then the next level of teachings on the stages of the path to enlightenment explain how to develop compassion. And how to increase compassion into great compassion. Ordinary compassion into great compassion, where we feel compassion for each and every sentient being, as infinite as they are. And then not just to feel great compassion, wishing all sentient beings to be free of suffering, but liberating the determination and taking personal responsibility to bring that about, to free all sentient beings from suffering. and having generated that, extraordinary aspiration, how can I do that? And we realize the only way to do that is by becoming a Buddha, by becoming enlightened ourselves. Only a Buddha has the power, the wisdom and compassion to free all sentient beings from suffering. So the way we become a Buddha is by following the bodhisattva's path. And that begins with generating the determination to become enlightened for the sole purpose of enlightening all sentient beings. So generating that determination is one thing. Then we have to engage in practices that lead to enlightenment, the bodhisattva's practices. And key among those practices are the practice. So, finally got to the topic. So, that's where I'm supposed to be talking about now, in these next couple of Sundays, the Bodhisattva's perfections. So, actually it's kind of, practices is way above my pay grade. But, Buddhism says these are degenerate times. You're the degenerate sitting in front of you, I'm afraid. Okay. So I wasn't really quite sure how to do this, because to deal with something that should really be dealt with over 6 months or a year is kind of a big ask. Sort of grunt of agreement. What?
We'll just ask you back and back and back.
Oh, yeah, sure. Careful what you wish for. So I have some notes here from Lama Zopa Rinpoche, our teacher here. Actually, he may be coming next year to the centre. You heard a rumour. No dates yet. So back in the old days in Nepal, there were these meditation courses which continue to this day. The last one just finished. Do you want to move? We prefer not looking. I know it's pretty horrifying, but okay, if you want to move, please feel free. Line of sight, So there was this textbook that was put together over the first 2 or 3 courses called The Wish Fulfilling Golden Sun of the Mahayana thought training, leading in the shortcut path to enlightenment. It was one of the longest book titles ever for 2 or 3 years. So he worked on it from 72 to 75, and then stopped. And then after a couple of years, he stopped using it at the courses. But there was a section towards one of the later incarnations of the book had a section on the perfections, the bodhisattva's perfections. So etymologically, the word perfection is from Sanskrit. I don't know how you pronounce it in Sanskrit. Paramita. So it can either mean like the perfection of a certain form of conduct, or there also has an interpretation that these are sort of transcendent actions that they're not ordinary actions. When a bodhisattva does them, they're transcendent. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. So there are 6 of them. Who knows what they are? Somebody.
Generosity, morality, patience, joyous effort, concentration, wisdom.
Did you get that? So the first one is charity or generosity or giving. Second one is morality or ethics or discipline. There are different ways of translating it. Effort, joyous effort. Enthusiastic perseverance, 4th one. Concentration, 5th one. And wisdom, 6th one. So these are the 6 main practices if we want to become enlightened that we need to practice on the bodhisattva's path. So I mentioned Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise. So this one, volume 2 out of 3, talks about the bodhisattva's practices, including the 6 perfections. So there's an outline at the back, and there's texts tend to have. So this section of the great treatise, this is what they put into volume 2. It talks about the stages of. So one, I mentioned Atisha, who's in the dark there in that second cabinet. Should have a light for Atisha, really.
Matthew.
Yeah, Matthew. So Atisha was this.
It does no the bulb is up.
Oh, okay.
He was a scholar that was invited to Tibet in the 10th century after Buddhism had degenerated somewhat there in Tibet, and he kind of was invited to come straighten it out, which he did. And one of the things he did was write this quite short text called "A Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment," in which he took, the entire body of the Buddha's, 40-year teaching career, and kind of crystallized it into this very clear step-like path to enlightenment. And one of the main features of that text was to divide it into these 3 divisions. Lesser capacity. So that's what I was saying before, that You know, the least we can do is try and get a better future rebirth after this life, not be reborn again as an animal or worse, you know, in cyclic existence, as we've been doing since beginning of this time. Is anyone here for like the first time?
Oh, you don't mean in cyclic existence.
You're not hearing for the first time in cyclic existence either.
I misunderstood you.
Has anyone not heard this weird stuff before? Okay. Anyway, if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt. You know, the first time, fall of 1972, the 1 month course, and he was teaching from this wish-fulfilling golden sun. And you know, I'd never really heard any Buddhist ideas before. It was like, it just seemed like such utter nonsense, you know. Well, luckily I didn't leave, but you know, I was pretty convinced that I was the person that Buddhism had been waiting for 2,500 years to prove it wrong. And you know, I kept interrupting him and challenging this and challenging that, and other students kept telling me to shut up, and eventually I got the message after about 2 weeks. And then started writing my questions down in the back of my notebook, and then by the end of the month a lot of them had been crossed off, because you can stand it in a month, you can't understand it even after 40 years, so good luck. So it takes many lifetimes actually to understand. So that's why, you know, we don't quite get it all this time. We've got to come back and have another go. So just being reborn into a situation like this one isn't as easy as it might seem, because we don't, you say, well, here we are, we didn't do anything, our parents did all the work for us. But it's not quite like that. You know. The parents gave us our body, but our mind came from our previous lives, our beginningless previous lives. And in those previous lives, in some of those previous lives, in a couple of those previous, we practiced and we created enough causes to be reborn into this situation, again, to come into contact with the teachings again. So it's not easy to do, if you really think about it. If you look around the world and just think of the people in the world that have the opportunities to study and practice that we have right now, they're very few. That's people with the opportunity to practice. And how many people with the opportunity to actually do the practice? There's very few, even fewer, you know. And that's just the people. And if you think about the animals and insects and so on, how few, just all the people are, 6 or 7 billion, how many there are now, compared to the trillion, all the beings in the animal realm. I mean, the number of humans, even 7 billion is nothing, actually. So all these lives that we see, people and the animals and insects, they didn't just happen, they're the results of a cause. They're the ripening of karma, ripening of a throwing karma. And that karma was created not by God or their parents, but by themselves in previous lives. So it's not easy to get another perfect human rebirth like this. To get a life like this, really we have to have had a previous perfect human rebirth. We've had to have, you know, very strong, pure practice ourselves. Just to be born human, just to be born in the upper realms as a human or a god, we need to practice discipline or morality. So that's next week's topic. But if we understand what that means, practice of discipline or ethics or morality, that causes us to be born in the upper, not the lower realms, even that's very hard. Then to be born in the upper realms with certain degree of material comfort, if not affluence, that takes the practice of this one, generosity, charity, giving. Miserliness.
Patient.
Don't be miserly. To get a perfect human rebirth with these 18 conditions, the 8 freedoms and 10 richnesses, each of those is a result of the cause. To get that, we really have to practice the 6 perfections. And then, conjoined with all that high-level Dharma practice, this is what we did in our previous lives. And that's why it's such a disaster if we waste it, if we blow it this time. Because we work very hard to get ourselves, we can't see it. We really don't have it. It was a lot of hard Dharma work. So it's a terrible tragedy to waste it, not to build on it. So conjoined with all that practice, we also need to make very pure, strong prayers. So prayer isn't, asking the Buddha, give us something for nothing. It doesn't work like that. You don't get anything for nothing. We do pray, but prayer is like watering seeds that you've planted. If you want to grow flowers, you plant the seeds and you water them, and then the seeds germinate, and the ground that doesn't have any seeds in it, you can do that till the cows come home and flowers. So if you pray for a good result without having created the cause of that good result, it's not going to happen. But if you create the cause of the good result and you don't pray, the result will come, but it will take longer. So by praying, if we create the causes of enlightenment and then we pray to become enlightened, then we will reach enlightenment more quickly if we know how to pray properly. So, prayer is bringing a future result of a cause that we ourselves have created. So to get a perfect human rebirth, another one like the one we have now, we can pray for that, and we can, very sincerely, I want that so I can continue my Dharma practice in order to reach enlightenment, save all sentient beings. But if we, if you're if you're shooting an arrow from a bow and you've got 3 targets, there's one's closer, one's in the middle distance, and one's farther away. Actually, if you aim for the distant target, it'll pass the close one and the next one quicker than if you just aimed for them. So if we aim for enlightenment and liberation from cyclic existence, these other good results will come sort of by the way and sooner. So we should always shoot for enlightenment and make those what they call stainless, pure prayers. Stainless means doing it purely for the sake of others, not for ourselves. Even though it's an incredibly good result for ourselves, we shouldn't think about it like that. So Atisha's text has these 3 ideas, or these 3 divisions. There are some practitioners who couldn't think beyond getting a hungry ghost or as an animal, that's what motivated their practice. Whatever, I just don't want to do that. I just want to get a better future life in cyclic existence, in samsara. So those are practitioners of least capacity. Then the practitioners of intermediate capacity say, well, getting reborn again in cyclic existence, even if it's a perfect human rebirth, is still fraught with suffering, so I want to escape altogether. You know, have the security of never again having to suffer. Which, you know, that's of course a pretty good result. But, so there's the practitioners of intermediate capacity, there's that section of the parish and cruel, just to leave the others behind and, you know, I'm all right, Jack. Then there's the path of the practitioners of great capacity. So that's what, you know, this section of the Great Treatise talks about, Volume 2. So it talks about, you know, how to develop bodhicitta, they call it spirit of enlightenment here in this translation. Then chapter 2 is compassion, the entrance to the Mahayana, the great vehicle, you know, the bodhisattva's vehicle. Then the 7 cause and effect, personal instructions, how to develop bodhicitta. Then the other technique, exchanging self and others. So Shantideva's text is one of the key texts on exchanging oneself for others, the guide to the bodhisattva's way of life, which we study here sometimes. Then there's the ritual for developing bodhicitta, taking the vows and maintaining bodhicitta. Then there's a chapter, the introduction to the 6 perfections. Then there's the training, the precepts and the perfections, training in the Mahayana. And then there's the chapter on the perfection of generosity. And there's 2 chapters on that. Ethical discipline, patience, joyous perseverance, then perfections of meditative stabilization, wisdom, and helping others to mature. So that's the 4 ways of gathering disciples. So that's what's covered in this book. The third book, which is actually much bigger, is actually goes into depth. It is an in-depth teaching on the last 2 perfections, concentration and wisdom. So teacher of Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa and our founders. He, over many years, 30 years or so, he gave teachings. He gave a commentary on Lama Tsongkhapa's text. So these commentaries, 3 of them, 3 volumes, have been published by Wisdom Publications, called Steps on the Path to Enlightenment. So this one, volume 3, is a commentary on this, volume 2. So, you know, maybe it'd be 6 years, not 6 months. Took him 30 years to go through the whole text. Volumes of commentary to come out. So volume 4 will be on development of concentration, and volume 5 will be on development of wisdom, I think. I'm not quite there. There have been a few years coming, but I think they're coming. So really, you know, Geshe Tenle's teaching another commentary on Atisha's text, Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, here regularly on Sunday mornings. So that's been going for a while. That's kind of, for us, probably a simpler text, which is why the Lamas tend to teach that one more than they tend to teach this. But that comes from this. Liberation of the palm of your hand, and you augment it by studying stages of the great treatise, then you augment that with Geshe's Zopa. You know, you'll be dead long before you can finish. But you know, you get points for trying. So I think we should try. I mean, this is like, to have these resources now, none of this was available 40 years ago. So it's, I mean, really, it's kind of all we need, to be honest. I mean, there's no way to practice, and there's no way to meditate without studying. That was the expression, meditates without first studying is like an armless rock climber. So, you know, imagine that. So we need to study, you know, but study, of course, not enough. We need to hear all these new ideas and think about them and try to decide for ourselves whether they make sense, whether they're correct or not. And if we feel they're correct, then we need to integrate them with our lives and you know, live according to the teachings and meditate on them and try and bring, transform sort of intellectual understanding into project. American. So, you know, I don't know what to do. It's like, I mean, really, there's so much. So let's see what we've got here. So the first perfection is, you know, variously called charity, or generosity, or giving. So what it means is having the will to dedicate our body, possessions, and merits to others, and making the actions of body and speech with this condition, or the will to dedicate our body, our possessions, and our merits to others. So the way to practice this perfection of giving, is to develop the will to give in many ways. So the destruction of miserliness in only the body and possessions is not called perfection of giving. So miserliness is sort of a subsection of attachment or greed. Greed is not good, by the way. So, you know, even practitioners who of the lower path, so-called lower path, those who are just looking, they have to avoid miserliness. I know I have trouble saying that, miserliness. So we have to avoid miserliness of our body and possessions, but also we have to not be miserly in the positive karma we create. The karma, and that's why we dedicate at the end of all our teachings and whenever we do any positive action, we give away, mentally give away to others the causes of happiness that we've created. We don't just keep them for ourselves. There's always has to be the compassion, has to be behind it all, you know, the determination to free others from suffering. You know, with the understanding that we can't do it if we don't free ourselves. So to practice this, we need to meditate on the shortcomings of attachment, of wanting good things for ourselves. And also we need to remember that our body and our possessions are very transient, They don't, we lose stuff all the time, of course, and sooner or later this time. So there's no point, as I mentioned before about death, it doesn't help to be attached. See, every time we generate attachment anyway, we create negative karma, the cause of suffering, either the cause of rebirth in the lower realms or the cause to experience suffering of one kind or another wherever we're reborn. So, and especially if we die with attachment to our body and our possessions, or, friends, family, that creates suffering at the time of death, and if we suffer at the time of death, our mind will continue into a suffering state. So it's very important. We should abandon attachment right away. And so that's why, this part of the practice of the perfection of generosity is mentally to give away, at least mentally give away our body and our possessions. And, from this moment on, to not have attachment. Just to consider that our body is just to be used for the happiness of others, and our possessions just for the happiness and welfare of others. And, and the practitioners actually do physically give away when they see they're going to, when they know you've mentally given everything up anyway, it doesn't matter that much. But physically, if you know you're going to die soon, you may as well just give everything away physically, so it's gone. So there's no danger of attachment to any of your stuff coming up at the time of death. Then also, as I say, we should dedicate our merit. We shouldn't think, I know I've done this good thing, so I'm going to experience a good result. That is also, it's true that if you've done something good, you will experience a good result, but to have attachment towards that is not a bodhisattva's practice. So that's why we should dedicate all our merits, whether they're great merits or small merits, in beings. So Nagarjuna said, the great Pandit Nagarjuna, who is a great explainer of the Buddha's teachings on the perfection of wisdom. He said, if all the merits we receive from saying prayers, such as the dedication prayers, became matter, they could not fit into even the number of universes equal to the number of grains of sand in the Ganges. So that was said by the Buddha, and can also be realized logically. The world of sentient beings is infinite, and so the benefits of the wish are that much. We receive from dedicating merits to enlightenment, if they manifested in physical form, would exceed all of space. Okay, so just moving on. So, there are 6 perfections, and each perfection, like the practice of generosity, should be practiced with the other 5. So there's the generosity of generosity, there's the morality of generosity, the patience, the energy, the concentration, and the wisdom. Practice of the generosity of generosity is giving without attachment. So, there's guys, usually guys, sometimes women, at the intersections of panhandling, you see them? They're really a great opportunity. So, if you keep a little stack of $1 bills in your car, that person is giving you incredible opportunity just to practice generosity. So if it's a quarter, if it was a stack of 10s or 20s, it'd be even better, or 50s or 100s. So the ultimate generosity of giving your body to others, of course, is like the bodhisattvas do. If someone wants an eye, you pull out your eye and give it to them, Or if somebody wants an arm, you cut off your arm. I don't think I'll do with it, but but the great bodhisattvas can give away parts of their body joyfully and not feel any, just feel bliss. Because they, or anyway, like the Buddha did in that previous life, when he came across a starving tigress with 5 cubs, and they were all starving to death. So he felt such compassion that he lay down beside the tiger. She couldn't even eat it. So then he cut himself. He was bleeding, and then the tigress licked the blood and finally got enough strength to eat his body and then feed the cubs. And there was, so to a high-level bodhisattva, that's not suffering, that's bliss to be able to do that. So we're not quite at that level yet. If somebody steps on our toe, we get upset. So as Shantideva said in his guide, when we're not at the level where we can give away parts of our body, we start by giving away vegetables. I think is the thing. So you give pieces of fruit to people, and gradually you give your $1 bill, and you give it here, and you give it to yourself, give it to your other hand. You get used to passing it from one hand to the other. So you kind of get the concept. Oh, if you go from one, then you make the huge leap of putting it in someone else's hand. So baby steps. You hear about baby steps? Look at the baby steps. So when if you do give $1 or a quarter, whatever it is, a dime, whatever you can manage, to someone at the traffic light, you don't just kind of say, here you go, like that. You try and make it a little meditation thing. Or you think of the suffering. I mean, I'm going to buy drugs or alcohol. I do that. So, well, one did. And so think of that person suffering. What they do with it is not our business. We're trying to help that person with what they need at the time. So that person's kind, giving us the opportunity to practice generosity. And so then think, through this giving, may I complete the perfection of generosity and the 6 perfections and quickly reach enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. You can think that in 5 seconds, in 10. Strong cause of enlightenment, actually. So this sentient being, this guy with a sign, homeless veteran or whatever, is actually, who knows, could be a bodhisattva manifesting like that to give you the opportunity to practice generosity, to develop your mind on the path to enlightenment. So instead of just mindlessly, here you go, say thank you, and think. You don't say, may I completely go, not put it run away. So, through this act now, I complete the perfection of generosity. And then, of course, ideally, then you think and I dedicate the merit of this thought and this act to enlightenment for sake of sentient beings. And then you also think how it's empty. None of this is self-existent. The dollar bill, the act of giving, the recipient, the whole thing is empty of inherent existence. It's a totally interdependent situation. So you do a little meditation on emptiness at the same time. So it's all there. So that's what the person is giving us a chance to do, to meditate on emptiness, to develop bodhicitta and become closer to enlightenment. For his sake or her sake and for the sake of all sentient beings. Generosity is giving without attachment. Immorality of charity, when we make charity, generosity with the bodhicitta, we should avoid all negativities of body, speech and mind. So, you don't get annoyed, you don't get angry, you don't get attached. You try not to be ignorant, you try to be aware of the interdependence of the situation, and not break any precepts as we're giving. Patience, also, we have to be patient. Maybe you give someone $1 and say, is that all? So you get annoyed, it's very even-minded patient. And if the person just takes it and runs off, doesn't say thank you or something, we can get annoyed, we want. So we have to be patient with while we're giving charity. So that's practicing patience, the third perfection with charity. Then energy, we have to always have energy to give. And whenever we have the opportunity, instead of thinking, I can do that later, I'm too busy to give now, we should always have enthusiastic perseverance to be assiduous in our practice of generosity. And give what we can when we can. And the path of the hungry ghost is to think, if I give, what shall I eat? So you think, I can't, if I give this to this person, I won't have enough money, I won't have enough to buy my lunch, so I'll be hungry. So that's the path of the hungry ghost. The path of the God is to think, if I eat, what shall I give? So if I spend this money on myself, I won't have money to give. In other words, it's more important to give than to eat, but without being ridiculous. Then the concentration of charity. So methods of giving and the shortcomings of not giving, and not be distracted, but be aware of what we're doing, and be totally in the moment. That's using perfection of concentration together with giving. So all this goes in much more detail here. This is just very briefly. And then the wisdom of charity, as I said, being aware of the emptiness of the situation, and not thinking strongly I and this object and that person as sort of independent, self-existent entities, but everything is totally interrelated. So practicing wisdom with giving. So all the 6 perfections, each of the 6 has to be integrated with the other 5 and with itself. So then to talk about practice with the 6 holy things. So the holy subject is giving with bodhicitta. The holy possession is always giving with bodhicitta, the determination to reach enlightenment, the sake of sentient beings. Not only when giving regular possessions, but even if you give something away that's very special or very precious. I don't practice this at all, but it just reminded me. In my first summer after I'd done a couple of courses, the first summer some of us went up to Lama Zopa Rinpoche's monastery in the mountains in Nepal, a place called Laudo. And we did different things up there for that summer, some retreat and some working in the monastery and stuff like that, teaching English to the young monks. And there's anyone been to Nepal? Anyone been to Namche Bazaar? Anyone been to Everest? If you go to Mount Everest, you go. There's a town up high in the mountain. To Everest, you go sort of northeast from there. And if you're going to Laudo, to Lama Zopa's monastery, you go west. There's another valley going that way. So we were up in Laudo, Rinpoche's monastery. But there's a well-known monastery for people who go to Everest called Rinpoche. It's kind of the main monastery on the way to the base camp. And there was a Lama there, Rinpoche Lama. So somehow I had this idea before I wanted to go to Rinpoche before I came back down to Kathmandu. So I set off and I went up and I was walking. And as I was going up the path to the monastery, I thought, I don't have anything to offer this Lama. And I had this signet ring that belonged to my father that I've been wearing for many years, a gold ring. Well, why don't I give him this ring? And then this other thought came, you're crazy? You don't even know this guy, this is your father's ring, it's gold. It's like, blah, blah, blah. Then this other mind comes, what are you so attached for? It's just a gold ring. Maybe you'll die soon, or someone will rob you and cut your finger off for it. Is it worth having your finger cut off for that? all this. So there's this debate. I'm walking up, getting closer and closer, and there's a debate going, shall I give this? There was nothing else. So anyway, I got in there and I pulled off the ring and I offered him a cutter. He looks at the ring, he looked at me kind of, I don't know you, why are you giving me this? Hi Lama, it's like, anyway, that was the end of the ring. So if I
did he
had...
keep it or did he give it back?
No, of course he kept it. You see me wearing it? I don't know what he did with it. Maybe put it in his mandala. I've got no idea. I don't know where it is now. I keep thinking maybe one day it will reappear in my life, So I still haven't let go. I'm still telling the story. I've still a lot of attachment there. See, but you're not supposed to have that. See, if I had presence of mind, I would have given with bodhicitta, for enlightenment, wouldn't have had a second thought about it, But it's a special thing, a holy possession, when you're giving something that you're very attached to. Like maybe give away your children or something, then you do it with bodhicitta, something special. The holy purpose. So that's giving temporary happiness to others, but with the benefit of the ultimate goal. So, like giving the dollar to the guy, the panhandle guy, but thinking that this may help you temporarily, but really the purpose is ultimate, the enlightenment, May we all reach enlightenment. the holy skill, that's giving the holy dedication, and dedicating the merits of the giving in order to reach enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. Then the holy purity, so giving in order to purify delusions, especially attachment and miserliness. So those are the 6 holy things we practice generosity with. And each practice should be also, there are 4 actions to be done with each perfection. So dedicating our body to all sentient beings from our heart, sincerely. Protecting, having dedicated our body to sentient. So if we dedicate our body for the welfare of other sentient beings, it kind of belongs to them, so then we can't use it selfishly for our own purposes. Then purifying, making charity of the body a pure practice by concentrating on the circle of the 3. With the circle of the 3, you'll hear that over and over again. The emptiness of the giver, the action of giving, and the recipient. And also there's a 4th thing, the thing given, I guess. That's probably part of the action of giving. So the circle of the 3, you heard that?
No.
Mm-hmm.
Pardon?
No.
Where have you been? No, you often hear that when the circle, giving with the circle of the 3, the emptiness of the donor, the action, the emptiness of the action of giving and the object given, and the emptiness of the recipient. So all 3 are empty of inherent existence. There's not a self-existent me who's doing this self-existent action of giving, this self-existent dollar, and there's no self-existent person receiving the dollar. It's all dependent origination. That's not how our ignorance normally perceives things. So we, anyway. So dedicating the merit of the action of giving the body to all sentient beings of enlightenment. So also Rinpoche says that we shouldn't get shocked by thinking that if we give everything away to sentient beings, there's nothing left for me. It's a mental dedication, so there's nothing wrong with it. On the other hand, we shouldn't think that just because it's mental, it's meaningless. It's not because there's nothing to receive. So at our stage, we don't physically give our body to others, but we give it mentally. And that has a huge, actually, mental impact on our consciousness, and can develop infinitely. The perfection of giving is to complete the training in the thought of giving even our merits of positive actions, let alone abolishing miserliness in our possessions. So then the giving has 3 divisions. There's the giving of Dharma. So that can be giving teachings. This is not what I'm doing, I'm just talking. But lamas, they give teachings. Giving Dharma is the highest form of giving. So that has ramifications. I mean, people who are interested in the Dharma. So anyone who helps the centre in any way is actually participating. You're creating the charity of Dharma, the highest form of giving. Because, Dharma, suffering sentient beings' main problem isn't actually the suffering. The main problem is the cause of suffering. If they didn't have the cause of suffering, they wouldn't have the suffering. And the cause of suffering is all these different delusions: attachment, pride, doubt, anger, wrong ideas, all this stuff. But the main cause of all to ignorance. So that's what sentient beings really need. It's like we all have to in the end, we all have to get rid of our own suffering. And the way we get rid of our own suffering is by practicing Dharma. And the way we so they can put it into practice and solve their own suffering, relieving it by hand or something like that. So we should be aware that by supporting the centre, by facilitating teachings, by just making sure the centre exists, we're actually engaged in the highest form of giving Dharma. And we should rejoice at that. So it increases our merit, and then we should dedicate that merit, by employing these different other aspects of giving that we just talked about. So, giving books, or anyway, there are many different ways we can give the Dharma to others. Giving of Dharma, well, the three divisions: the giving of Dharma, the giving of fearlessness, and the giving of material giving. So, fearlessness means saving others from suffering, freeing people from prison, rescuing a fly from a spider's web, or saving a drowning insect. We see people or animals and insects in difficult situations all the time. I'd go so far as to say being vegetarian or vegan is also saving animals from death. It take a lot to eat a chicken. Probably eat a whole chicken in 1 or 2 days. If you don't eat it, you've saved a chicken's life somewhere down the line. So anyway, if you think about the difficult situations that people and animals find themselves in, anything you do to alleviate that is practicing the practice of giving the fearlessness. And then material charity, well, we talked about that. How do we do it? There's an object that's I'm running out of time, I'm afraid, but there's the object to who you give, another living being. There's the motivation with which we give, the bodhicitta, to reach enlightenment, sacred all sentient beings. There's the necessity, which is the necessity due to I have to give, because to reach enlightenment I have to complete the perfection of giving. So I should give as much as possible. Get it over with. Due to this action, I'll complete the perfection of giving and become fully enlightened. Then the possessions, we should regard whatever we have as not something for my own use, but something that gives me the opportunity to give, physically or mentally. So we should feel, when we give, we should feel as we do when we're giving something back to someone, something we borrowed back to the owner. So when we give, we should feel that That's the way we should feel. When you're giving something, you know, you borrow somebody's chainsaw and you give it back to them, you don't feel like, oh, I'm losing my chainsaw, you know. It's like, it belongs to that person. Of course, it's the right thing. So that's when we're giving, we should feel that way, you know, that we're returning something we borrowed to its rightful owner. You know, we're just keeping it for a while. Of the object. So we should consider the being to whom we're making the charity as our guru, helping us complete the perfection. The person to whom we're giving is someone we don't like, as an enemy. We should actually make an effort to give with love. If the person is suffering and miserable, we should make charity with compassion. If the object is knowledgeable, you know, if we're giving to a lama, for example, you know, we should make charity with a rejoicing mind. And if the person is a friend, someone we're attached to, then we should do it with equanimity, without attachment, you know. Anyway, look, it goes on for pages. So, I don't know, I'll think about whether to continue or whether to move on to the next section next time, I don't know. That's it. Sorry, there's no time for questions, except one. Go on. No, go ahead. It's okay.
You brought up a bunch of books that we can read to help us understand Dharma better, but when we read those books, we're reading them with ignorance, and some of the things that are in there we might misinterpret.
Yeah.
And that's a really big danger. Yeah. So isn't it dangerous to look at it all yourself and to try to, you know, understand it and then misunderstand it and lead yourself even farther from what the original intent was? So isn't it better to not?
No, it's better to read and make a note of what you... Do we do discussion groups here or anything? I mean, not much. We do?
Yeah.
Oh, that's on Thursdays? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I think it's very important. You know, I mentioned the three objects of refuge before: the Buddha, Buddha's teachings, and the spiritual community. So technically the Sangha, which is the three jewels of refuge, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, triple gem, three jewels. The Sangha, technically, there are two kinds of Sangha. There's absolute Sangha and relative Sangha, ultimate and conventional. So ultimate is anybody who's realized emptiness. So that completed the path and has intimate knowledge of the path. That's definitely a worthy object of refuge. That person can definitely guide us because that person knows the way. Then the conventional Sangha technically is a group of 4 or more fully ordained monks or nuns. Those people who're living in morality, who understand the practice, who are professional Dharmic practitioners. They're also worthy objects of refuge. They've renounced cyclic existence, they've renounced worldly life, they're purely following the path. We can also rely on them to help us. So there's never any idea that you have to do it alone, you know. There are teachers and sort of watered down, if I may, interpretation of the word Sangha is our Dharma friends, the Dharma community. And you'll see, oh, the Kurukulla Center, people talk about Kurukulla, they don't mean Kurukulla monks and nuns, they mean the people who come here to teachings. So these are our Dharma friends. And these are people who can really straighten out our wrong conceptions. So you're right, if you go off and take a bunch of books and go off to a cave for the next 30 years and you don't talk to anybody else, you may get terrible misconceptions and lead yourself completely down the wrong path. That's not how to do it. the way to do it is to read stuff and to discuss and to come to class and ask questions. If you read Atisha's text, the very first lam-rim text, it's 68 verses. If you read that, I think it's really a little hard to understand. So that's why these lamas, they wrote more elaborate explanations of it. So, the more, the bigger the book, as daunting as it seems, actually the bigger, the more detailed the commentary, the better it is for us. The short texts are very hard to understand. The medium ones, a little bit easier, but the long ones, they really spell it out. So these, you read the main text, and then you read the commentary, and then you talk to other people about it, and you spend some time, a few years looking into it. I think you're not going to go wrong. So it's a good point. Okay, sure. All right, so hopefully, we started with the right motivation. We, I think, talked about the Buddha's teachings, so now we complete the action by dedicating the merit to enlightenment of all sentient beings. So we formalize that just with a few short prayers.
Page 57, just a bit.
Yeah.
Page 57.
Page 57. So these prayers just formalize it. We really have to know what we're doing in our heart. What we're doing is dedicating the merit to enlightenment of all sentient beings.
Through this virtue may rise with thee, having gained mercy, praise each and every sentient being, without
mix them up.
Okay, so I wasted some of the time at the beginning on more preamble, so next week we'll try and dive more quickly into the subject, whatever it is.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Really
man.
appreciate it. We're very privileged. Quick just reminder that Chris and Donna are looking after the center for us while Geshe and Kimber's away. So if anyone here have questions, if you need to find out anything, Chris and Donna will be happy to help. And as Nick said, so obviously next week on the 28th, and then the week after that. For next week's schedule specifically, we have Monday night the meditation class. We're just reviewing meditation and doing some guided meditations in that. Then we do have yoga on Tuesday, We will not have anything on Wednesday night or Thursday night, so we have coming back for Nick. Just a reminder for folks, please recite the Golden Light Sutra and send me any number that you have recited. It is for the benefit of the center, and Lama Zopa Rinpoche had said that this will be really beneficial for our center. We will also have an official group recitation of it on New Year's Day at 10 o'clock in the morning. And lastly, just a reminder, and then on December 31st, actually New Year's Eve, we do have a Guru Puja that we will have. So just a summary, so that's it. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
As always, we're on donations. Go outside on the left-hand side, our lovely donation box. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.